sort of like the difference between a neo-reactionary and like a reactionary is like, as a neo-reactionary, I have no authentic connection to the past. You know, where did I learn about, my personal guru, Thomas Carlyle? Was I a descendant of like a continuous chain of teachers from Carlyle to Ruskin to, whoever? No. I found these books on like Sergey Brin at Google, had them scanned. And I started reading the Latter-Day Pamphlets or whatever, and I'm just like, this is the most amazing book ever written, and nobody has ever heard of it, and like even Carlyle scholars don't really, they read like, heroes and hero worship, which is, okay, it's fine, but it's second-rate Carlyle, and Carlyle, can I digress about Carlyle for a second?
Please do.
Can I adore Carlyle, the Victorian Jesus? Carlyle he was like this liberal enfant terrible. He had this amazing breakout success with his History of the French Revolution, which is wonderful, which famously his friend John Stuart Mill, Carlyle lent the manuscript of the first volume of the French Revolution, which is this brilliant, scintillating book. I mean, honestly, you need to know the history of the French Revolution before you read it, because it's a literary work. It's not a Wikipedia page, right? Yeah. Carlyle lends this to Mill. He leaves it on his desk. His charwoman thinks it's like scrap paper and burns it. Carlyle has to write the whole thing over again. He does it. He writes the second volume. It's a smash success. Carlyle, he's like a Victorian Hunter S. Thompson. His just facility with language is incredible. He, creates all this. I mean, yeah, I think he's the only Victorian worth mentioning on the same page as Shakespeare. And so, people love him. He's this genius. And then he writes this like series of like pamphlets or texts inspired by the revolutions of 1848. And they're just like, everyone in England is, of course, delirious with joy over the revolutions of 18. It's like the Arab Spring all over again, right? And it's a total Arab Spring experience. They're like basically substitute, Hungary for the Ukraine, and you're there, right? And including the Russian part. And Carlyle writes this basically series of like anti-democratic, anti-modern pamphlets, and people are just like stunned by his switch from being the enfant terrible of liberal England to like a level of like reactionary that doesn't even exist. Like, it's off the scale, right? And, basically they're like, and Carlyle's asked about this, and he's like, yeah, I didn't really write these for today. These are for 200 years from now, and we're about 180 years from now, and you read these in the 21st century, and, it's like two of these pamphlets are called Downing Street and the New Downing Street. And the New Downing Street is kind of his description of what a real statesman, who he hopes will be Robert Peel, but Robert Peel dies, would do with England. And Downing Street is like, it has this very memorable description of like English politics in the 1840s, where his analogy is like, these are not really statesmen. They're just basically, they're like jockeys on a mad horse, and they get elected, and their only goal is to be on the horse and stay on the horse. And the horse is going around in circles, following his own like tracks and like doing just completely insane stuff. And they're like, he's on the horse. And he could be describing Boris Johnson, and he could absolutely be describing Boris Johnson, who gets elected, and then poor Dominic realizes that Boris's only goal is to be on the horse.
Dominic Cummings, yeah.
And his only goal, he's not trying to reinvent, Whitehall or anything. No, he just wants to be on the horse in front of the TV cameras, right? And
supermarket trolley was the metaphor he used. Yeah.
Sure, right. We don't have horses anymore, right? But the last horse died in the 80s sometime. But
what's a horse?
What's a horse, right? But it's just like, to sort of see this pattern in the mid-19th century and just like nail it and say this is the future. Or he's basically like, Carlyle somewhere else in the pamphlets is like, okay, here's the future of Christianity. It's going to turn into this like milk and water thing. He could be describing Justin Welby, right? And like sort of the feeling of like prophecy is in this work, and it's written with this like biblical feel. You just you start reading it and you're just you're thrown into the intensity of this drama. It's just this incredible, prescient work. There's just nothing like it. You can find it on the internet. It's very easy to find. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And reading the pamphlets was just this religious experience for me.
We better leave it there, Curtis. But firstly, you've given a great plug to Carlyle there, but also we should plug Grey Mirror.
greymirror.substack.com.
I'd like to thank you very much for coming in and not answering any of my boring questions.
No, not at all.
But giving brilliant answers
Brilliant
nonetheless.
digressions.
And great pleasure to...
And a great